Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. I have a great guest today, Nona Melkonian. We're going to talk about everything in her career as being a journalist, working for Huys Media, an Armenian independent journalism company, Melkonian Media, which is where her own independent company where she amplifies small businesses, mom life, talking a little bit about mom guilt and kind of, balancing being a mom and also being a corporate, like a career professional, and how she balances that. And we're also going to be talking about just following your dreams and the steps she took to get to where she is. Thank you guys. Look forward to it. Nona, first off, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited. I've been looking forward to this. We've been trying to plan this for some time, and I'm glad it's finally happening.
Yeah, we've been going back and forth and trying to pick out a day. I know you have 3 kids, so it's
busy.
Very hard, right?
Yeah, but hey, I make it work,
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. I know you're super busy. Everything you're doing with Huys Media, and you have your own media company as well, Melkonian Media, amplifying small businesses, just finding small businesses that are doing things well and just taking them to the next level with your exposure and your brand awareness. I love it. I want to start off with what made you want to get into that in the first place? Out of all the things you could have done, you picked this thing and you're killing it. But you could have been, a writer or a dentist or something. What made you want to do this?
That's a great question. It's really interesting that I'm in the small business space right now because that wasn't always the plan for me. In the beginning, I started off in journalism and I was a broadcast journalist. That's what I went to school for. And it wasn't until I had an internship where I worked for the community affairs department that I got to work on local stories, interviewing people in the community.
Of the city of LA, or?
This was in San Francisco.
Oh,
and this
SF,
was
okay.
back in 2006, I would say,
right.
When I was in college. I was lucky enough to have this amazing internship at KTVU Channel 2 News. And in that community affairs department, I got to work with a lot of people in the community, but also small businesses. And I got to talk to the owners and hear their stories. And one thing kind of led to another, and supporting businesses and what they do slowly became my brand. But that didn't happen until COVID. And that's an interesting story on its own. But, it's interesting. You start off going one way, and then life kind of takes you on another path. It's just about being open to it.
So 2006, these are your college days, right? And until now, 2025, what do you think it was that kind of changed in you? Because you started, your COVID days is when you really started amplifying small businesses. What were you doing before then? And what made it change into, talking about small businesses through social media?
Yeah. So after I graduated in college, so I continued with the internship at KTVU Channel 2 News. And it was that experience in the news world that I realized, well, it's not really hard news that I want to do. I'm more into lifestyle and entertainment. And so I was lucky enough to get a job for the city of San Francisco at SF Gov TV, where I talked to city supervisors and the mayor. And while I was asking them about different propositions and things going on within the city, I was also kind of sneaking in, well, what events are you going to attend this weekend?
Right.
And I was more interested in the fun aspect of it. And I pushed the envelope as much as I could working for the city. But I always knew that I had to end up in LA because this is where I needed to be. And initially I moved here to pursue entertainment journalism. And it wasn't until COVID when my industry was pretty much at a standstill. There were no events, there were no red carpets. And, everything was going on in Armenia. And I wanted to be involved in the community. And one thing led to another. I started doing fundraisers, on Instagram and whatever ways that I could. I was interviewing prominent people within the community. And then I realized, well, a lot of these Armenian businesses are donating so much of their dollars towards what's going on back there. How can we support them? And I started those relationships. And then after COVID, continued with those relationships. And now I work closely with them.
Oh, okay. Amazing. I love that. So, is there anyone that you would look up to, in the industry, in the entertainment industry, that you maybe wanted to emulate their work ethic or kind of the way that they conducted themselves online, or inspiration or things like that? Or is there anyone that you really looked up to, or is it kind of you just built your own path and you were inspiring yourself?
There's inspiration everywhere.
Right.
somebody in my, like in the hosting event space and in the entertainment space, I would say Oprah. You know, Oprah
Oh yeah, I love Oprah.
was my biggest inspiration. But before I got into entertainment, when I was younger and when I wanted to get into news, there was a reporter by the name of Gassia Mikaelian who did the 10 p.m. news in San Francisco. And at the time, there really wasn't anybody on the news who not only looked like me, but had a last name like mine. You know, my last name is Melkonian, hers was Mikaelian. Here is this Armenian woman sitting at the news desk giving us the news. And, you know, she had brown hair. She was relatively like my build. Mm-hmm. And that inspired me. Just that alone, having that representation inspired me to go into that industry at a very young age, because I felt like, you know what? We can do this too. If she can do it with a last name that sounded like mine, I can do it too. So I didn't grow up in LA. I grew up in San Francisco. There is an Armenian community, but it's a little bit more spread out than it is here. And we don't have the same amount of representation as we do in LA. So having an Armenian reporter, an anchor at that, meant everything.
Do you think if Gassia, let's say she, you know, didn't hold that position, wasn't there, do you think that seed would have been planted to you to pursue what you're doing now as an adult? Or do you think it would have changed the direction of your career?
You know, it's interesting. I feel like our path is already paved for us.
Oh, okay.
And whatever it's meant to be yours is going to be yours one way or another. As a kid, I started off in acting. I had a manager. I had all kinds of really fun gigs that I did. But it wasn't until there was this opportunity for me to play myself and tell my story. I mean, it wasn't literally me, but I got to play a girl, you know, who was coming from an immigrant family and was telling her story of what it's like to be Armenian. And there was a camera crew that showed up to my middle school, KZV, and they just kind of filmed a day in the life. And at the very end of this series, I got to talk directly to the camera and give a monologue to the camera as myself. And I really liked that. Like, it wasn't about playing a character. It was about getting a chance to be myself. And I'm like, there's really something there. It's the way that, you know, I don't have to play somebody else. I get to be me. And I knew right then and there that it's not that I want to be an actor. It's that I want to be a storyteller. Something where I get to be myself on camera, on stage, in some kind of a platform.
You were around 12, 13 at that time?
Yeah.
Or? Okay.
I was around
teenager.
12 or 13 at that time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. No, I love that. Is it so? Do you think that you kind of have this very just confident personality? You're good with talking to people. Do you think that's something you were born with, or is it something that you could develop? Because there's some people that are kind of in their shells.
Yeah.
I'm honestly like that. People are shocked to hear it because this is what I do, but I'm pretty introverted, and they're like, wow. They're surprised when they meet me because, like,
do you know what?
Yeah, they're like, the people that like I talk to, they meet, they're like, wow, I can't believe you're so introverted. I'm like, yeah, that is naturally how I am, but
that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
That does not surprise me, because I do think that confidence is learned. For some of us that are lucky enough to just have that natural confidence and push ourselves, most of us aren't that way. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, I'm not that way either. I have to constantly give myself that pep talk to know, like, you are that girl. Like, I think even Beyonce has this alter ego that she puts on.
Sasha Fierce.
Yes, to put herself in that element. So I have to do that too. You know, what I do right before, like, red carpets, because I did a lot of red carpets when I moved here. One of the things that I would do, and I still do that now before a big event, is I would crank up music in my car when I'm on my way there. And I pretty much throw myself a party in the car. And then when I get there, you know, it's my game face. You know, you got to have that game face, even if it's not natural to you. The reality is other people don't know that. They don't know what's going on inside of you if you're nervous.
Yeah, it's like impossible to tell.
Right?
Yeah.
And as long as you don't show that you're nervous, you don't let them see you sweat, you'll be all right.
Do you think, like, naturally off camera, are you more just like introverted to yourself? Do you like going out naturally, or are you more of like a stay-at-home type person? Me, for example, like, I go out for like 35 minutes and then I want to go back home. Yeah. Like, I'm not like, I don't like being out too long, but how are you?
I feel like I'm an extroverted introvert, if there's such a word. I'm naturally extroverted. You know, I love seeing friends, talking to people, meeting new people, but at the same time, it's like I do have a social battery.
Yeah.
And then when my social battery is done, I am done.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. No.
But a lot of people in my space, I found like a lot of hosts are really the same kind of way. And when I first moved to Los Angeles, one of the things that I was nervous about is I'm like, well, you know, how am I going to be with others who are also doing the same kind of thing? Are they competitive? Am I going to make friends? And I was so surprised to learn that there's such a supportive community there. And everybody kind of scratches each other's back. And the way that I kind of started doing red carpets and working for a few different entertainment outlets is from meeting different hosts who said, hey, I'm not available on this day. You know, do you want to do the MTV Awards because they need somebody? And I'm like, are you kidding?
Yeah. So how did you start? Like you mentioning red carpet, MTV, those are very like well-known events.
Yeah.
How did you break into that? Like, did you know someone and then again, like they couldn't make it that day and they made you, or how did you, you know, get to that level?
So I moved to LA in 2018.
Yeah.
And at the time I had 2 kids. One was 5 and the other was 3, I think. And I thought to myself, okay, it's going to be now or never. I have this dream of moving to Los Angeles. And I'm also a mom and I have kids, and how are we going to do this?
Right.
And when my son was turning 5, I'm like, well, he has to start elementary school. Might as well be in a brand new city. Maybe it'll be a smooth transition. And I encouraged my husband at the time to take a job in Los Angeles. And that's how we were able to all move here. And it was something that I've been wanting to do my whole life. And I was willing to do all kinds of things for free. You know, you have to just make yourself available to put yourself in a room where there's going to be opportunities for you. And that's essentially what I did. I went to events, mixers, networking events, you know, and then you meet people. One thing kind of leads to another, and then the opportunities will present themselves. It's not the way that it used to be anymore, where, you know, you meet this talent agent and then they take you by the hand and then they make you a star. You create your own opportunities now.
Yeah.
With social media.
Yeah. Do you think social media is like that gap, that bridged it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. There's, you know, and even media, like so many people get their news off social media nowadays. Like they're not watching the big networks the way they used to, you know, and there's something to say about that. Like it really depends on how you look at it, but there's an advantage, you know, to make something of yourself. I think it was Andy Warhol that said, you know, everyone in the future is going to have their 15 minutes of fame or something like that was the quote.
Oh, he said that? I didn't know.
And so here we are.
Yeah. How do you feel like entertainment and news has trended for the better or for the worse? Because since you've been in the game for a while, from 2006 till now, like you've seen it morph. And the good part is that everyone can kind of create their own brand.
Right.
But the bad part is
everybody can create their own brand.
And you could just basically say whatever you want. And there's just a lot of people there's a lot of grifters that just make money off people. So there is a great good and bad side to it.
Absolutely.
How do you think it's like changed over the years? And are you a fan of it, or are you kind of not a fan? Because there's some people that are like, no, it's trending very badly. But yeah, I want to know how you feel about it.
I think there's both sides to it. You know, anybody can give themselves a platform, and that can be a wonderful thing. And it can also be a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
You know, because you can build a following by simply being charming. And it's not about having the education or the backing.
Kind of like Joel Osteen.
You know what I mean? Like there's people out there.
Shout out to you, Joel, if you see this. Okay.
But those of us, you know, who come from the background or have gotten, you know, the experience, hands-on experience, that's not all it takes anymore. And sometimes it's about being in the right place at the right time, you know, to create these opportunities. And when I say, you know, the right time, I don't mean on a Thursday versus a Wednesday. I mean having the tools that you need to be ready. You know what I mean? Having that experience, whether it's hands-on, whether it's schooling, maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah.
The opportunity is there.
The opportunity, it is there, and it's there for the taking. Because if you really look at people and consistency, a lot of people give up before they could get started. And that's so like unfortunate, because imagine if you just stuck with what you're doing and you could really reach a lot of heights. And everyone thinks it's like you have to be this superhero. No, you could just have to keep going, and then doors will open.
You have to keep going.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you have to have thick skin, because you're going to get criticism. You're going to get so many naysayers along the way. And it's about being able to know when to silence those voices. Because you know what? You have to be able to take criticism. Sometimes the criticism is to your benefit. Sometimes somebody can say, hey, we don't think you're the right fit for this position because you need to do X, Y, Z, and you still need to learn and grow a little bit, and then you can come back to us. That's valid. But if somebody tells you, well, we want somebody with blonde hair and, you're a little bit tall and I don't like the way you're smiling, like that's not the kind of criticism you want to take to heart. And for somebody like me who will naturally gravitate toward those negative comments, like if I get 100 positive comments and I'll get one negative one, for whatever reason, I remember that one negative one. And I have to force myself not to take that personally and let it get to me.
Yeah, how do you fight through? How do you push through that?
You just push through it.
Yeah, it's is there a way that you figured out how to push through it, or is there any way you do it, or?
I listen to music in my car.
Okay.
And I have my dance parties in the car.
That's okay.
I pump myself up, I have gotten so much criticism, earlier in my career when I wanted to pursue this from just people in my circle, just don't do it. How are you? And that comes from a place of fear, to be honest. That is just people who are still living within a certain box. And because they're afraid of what's outside of that box, that they kind of tell you to also be in that same place. And you have to be out of the box. And you have to be a little bit fearless, even if deep down you're a little scared.
Do you think you're an outside the box type of person? Do you think outside the box?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have to be outside the box and you have to think big. Sometimes, they say if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's it. That's that thinking. And some people are totally fine just going day to day, doing the same thing every day, being comfortable in whatever they're doing. And I think that's wonderful. But then there are others who think outside of that box. And I happen to be one of them. I feel like it's an entrepreneurial thing and way of looking at things where you're constantly thinking about, what else can I be doing?
Yeah. Were you I want to say did your environment form you, or do you think you were naturally like that? Were your parents like that, and then they kind of passed it down to you, or do you think you kind of it was more of a mindset shift, or is this something you always had as a kid, or?
Yeah, well, my mom is a musician, and she plays guitar, and she comes from a family of artists. But, when we moved to the States, we wanted to be practical, and we realized, hey, you got to make money to survive.
Yeah.
And so growing up, I took a lot of classes, and I took acting classes. I was a big theater kid. But then when it came time for college, she was like, all right, well, you got to go into nursing. We've got this family business, and, if you become a registered nurse, that would really elevate things for our business. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going to major in nursing. I had no idea what I was doing. I was practically failing my classes. I was taking chemistry for health science majors and physiology and anatomy that was for specific health majors.
Right.
And I remember one day we had to dissect a cadaver, which is a person, who passed away.
Yeah, dead human.
Yeah. And they smelled like formaldehyde. And they were blue. And everybody else in the class was so excited to get their hands on them. Meanwhile, I just stood against the wall and I'm I couldn't help but think about the story of that person. I'm were they somebody's father? Did they have children? How old are they? And that's when I made that shift in my head that this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. And I changed my major that night. I changed it to communications, graduated with honors, and here we are.
Oh, I see. Were your parents upset at that time that because they wanted you to go into nursing, but you changed it, or were they okay with it? Did it take them some time to convince, or how was that process?
My parents have always been so supportive of me,
right.
But they were also very practical. So at the time when I said, I'm dropping this major, I'm not going to be a nurse. Yeah, there was a little bit of disappointment and maybe even fear, but they believed in me. And so when I majored, in communications, I knew I wanted to become a reporter. I got this amazing internship. But in order to pursue this career, in order to become a reporter and a journalist, on a big news network, you have to be able to move to a smaller town, a small market, and to work your way up and then eventually move back to San Francisco where I was living at the time. And that's when I realized I couldn't do it. I'm not ready to leave my comfort zone. I wasn't ready to leave my family and my boyfriend at the time. I wanted to stay local and be in my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back at it now and I'm well, that's okay because then I wasn't ready. But because I wasn't willing to do that, it made things a little bit more difficult. And I had to think of creative ways that I could still do what I do. So I got a job for the city of San Francisco working in their TV department. And I pushed the envelope, like I was saying, as much as I could by coming up with creative stories and doing original programs about things that are going on in the city. I had this show called The Weekly Buzz, which talked about local events that were affordable. And I would, have that every week or so. And I had a lot of fun doing that. But I knew I always wanted to be in LA because ultimately I wanted to pursue entertainment and lifestyle. So here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it so what made you kind of want to go from entertainment and everything you're doing with Huys Media, which I know that like everything you were doing there, what made you want to kind of transition or add on a little bit to small businesses? Because I noticed that's what you're really mainly focused on.
Yeah, I feel like the transition kind of happened for me. So, but right before COVID, I was working for the city of Torrance, Channel 3 in Torrance, and one of my roles was to host, produce, and write a show called Common Sense, which spotlighted and highlighted local businesses within the city of Torrance, in a 10-minute show. So I would edit it, I would write it, I would do the interviews. I had so much fun doing that. And then when COVID happened and everything was at a standstill, my show was gone. I'm like, well, what skills can I bring to what's happening now and continue to support the community? So I took that concept and I came up with an Instagram series called Dollars and Cents, which was inspired by Common Sense, the show that I had for the city of Torrance. And I would interview people on my Instagram, and most of them were small businesses. Actually, they were small businesses. And then it ended up being that I would talk to 4 businesses every Tuesday for 15 minutes. And they would talk about who they are, what they do, and, show people how they could support them and what amazing products and services they offer.
And that was done independently, right? Or were you...
Totally.
That was independent done page.
Completely independently. So while I was supporting businesses, I was also working with a lot of organizations, a lot of great organizations. So I'm involved kind of everywhere. And then my involvement with Huys came after. So they're a relatively new media company. But, Huys in Armenian means hope.
Right.
And when they approached me and they told me who they were and that they're this positive, news outlet, essentially, or entertainment space. And they were like, we want you to be our host because we feel like you embody everything that we are. And it was just a no-brainer.
So did they just find you on Instagram? They DM'd you, or how did they find you?
Yeah, they just messaged me, on Instagram, and I guess they were watching kind of what I do for a while. And, I think I was working and doing some marketing for some other campaigns, because that's also what I do. It's like, I feel like I do a little bit of everything now. I started off in one way, and then there's all of these avenues that I kind of have now, which I think is pretty cool. They say that you should be very niche in what you do, but not all of us are. And, some of us are multi-hyphenate and multifaceted. And so I do a little bit of everything. So I'm doing marketing, doing reporting, campaigning, and working with a lot of businesses. And all of that doesn't feel like work to me. It feels effortless. And that's when you know that whatever you're doing the right thing, is when it feels effortless and it doesn't feel like work. Like if I could do all of that for free, I would. And sometimes I do. Yeah. But when it also comes with a paycheck, it's a wonderful blessing. And I'm so grateful for that.
I see. No, multi-hyphenate, I actually learned that through our mutual friend, Louisa. Shout out you, Louisa. She's the one that taught me what that was. When I interviewed her a while ago, that's basically, it's you're not confined in one thing. You are interested in and you excel at many things.
Absolutely.
You can't you want to put your finger in a lot of things, which is just a natural drive that you have.
Yeah, I feel like some of us are that way, and some of us are really good at that one thing, and that's okay. It all makes our world that much more colorful to have different kinds of people with different kind of skill sets. I happen to dabble in a little bit of everything, similar to how Louisa is, and I love to talk to people and interview people who are very specific in what they do and kind of let them shine. I feel like in the work that we do, it's great to leave it to the experts to have a stronger opinion, and just have a conversation with somebody that maybe you don't necessarily agree with. And those are some of the best conversations. Yeah. I know we've had some too.
The world is Would you agree that the world is really kind of, it used to be a lot worse back then, but I think people are like more
Open-minded.
tolerant to
Yeah.
talking with people, different opinions. Like
It's a
this
beautiful
whole
thing.
cancel culture and nonsense is kind of going away, which thank God, because I thought it was very dumb, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've went through a lot of phases and things, and I feel like we're kind of in a place now where being different is great and it's encouraged. There's no longer a box of what you need to be and how you need to act. I remember when, I was working at KTVU, I made a sizzle reel at the end of that internship, and I watch it now and I cringe because it's not like, me doing my thing. It's literally me pretending to be a reporter, pretending to be this way that I would watch all the reporters do. I wasn't myself. I didn't bring my personality in. But now the more that you're yourself, the more that you add your own character or spin, the more that you bring value.
Yeah. And people could sense it too. Yeah.
People can sense it in a heartbeat. People want authenticity. I feel like COVID did that, honestly.
And I think a little bit of COVID and a little bit of just social media has really taken away any room for you to be inauthentic. Well, no,
Yeah.
I mean, I think you kind of can with like really curating some posts and like renting a fake car. I think that's possible, but I mean, like, if you're very active on it, they're eventually going to figure out if you're authentic or you're in it. It's just really, it's impossible to hide anymore. And it's not like we're not in a time and day where like celebrities are some hidden figures or people on social media are hidden figures. People want to see everyone's like day to day.
They want to see your day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, they do.
I love sharing that naturally just because, social media to me is like when I open up my phone and I post something on social media, it's like I'm posting to my friends. And at the same time, it's also like your resume, the stuff that's on there, because you're going to have, all kinds of businesses and brands approach you. And so you need to be mindful of what you are posting at the same token. Yes, be yourself. Yes, be authentic, but also be mindful of how you are conducting yourself and presenting yourself, because all of that kind of stuff matters.
Yeah. Yeah. So all these, I want to focus on, right now on some, like small businesses. With small businesses, is there any like thing you've picked up on all these businesses that you've, looked at and interviewed people that own these businesses? Is there anything that small businesses do correct? Like they do these couple of things and they end up being successful, or they don't do these things and they end up not being successful? Is there anything, like any insight you have about that?
What I find really interesting is the businesses that are most successful are not necessarily the businesses with the best products. I mean, yes, that's important to offer a wonderful product, but it's the person behind the business, because they're not buying your product, they're buying you.
Right.
So you need to bring it in whatever way that means. My good friend, Carreno, who has a charcuterie business, he makes beautiful charcuterie, but he is just such a personality himself that when you say charcute, you think of him. And I think he's really mastered that and done that right. And I feel like with small businesses, you really need to put a face to the brand. That adds so much value when you bring your own personality into it, especially if the space is already saturated with so many businesses that do the same kind of thing. Like if you have a lipstick brand, like what makes your lipstick different? Okay, it's made out of non-toxic. Okay, it's great. But if the person behind it is posting all of this like fun social media and just really interesting and taking themselves out of the box like we were talking about, that makes all the difference.
Yeah, I think Alex Cooper did that with her show. I don't know if you watched Call Her Daddy. Yeah, I think she did a really good job of just like showing herself as a brand, and then she sold on like Spotify for like a really big amount of money. So yeah.
There you go. And so back to social media. The content doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need a big production anymore. You could just sit in your car with your phone. But if you're offering value and you're giving information about something that people can really benefit from, that's going to help you grow so much. And I think that's really interesting. That says so much about us, and how we consume information. Because we don't take that perfectly curated content anymore. Like we want the real deal.
People want relatable stuff. Yeah. There's definitely like content that I've posted that I've thought, man, this is going to do really poorly. No one's going to care. And then that ends up doing very well. And then content that I post, I'm like, oh, I think this is going to do pretty well. And it ends up flopping.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it always happens.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it?
But that says something.
Yeah. No, people want to have someone relatable.
And people are smart. People are smart, and they will catch you if you're BSing or if you're talking about something that doesn't come from the heart. So I just say, be yourself. You'll find your people. You'll find your audience. Keep building. If you build it, they will come.
Are you most active on Instagram?
I think so. I got to get better with like TikTok and YouTube. I've played with it a little bit, but Instagram just feels more natural to me.
Yeah, what is it about like Instagram that you prefer more? Instagram, my YouTube and TikTok is what I really like, which is crazy because I used to say I really don't like TikTok, but TikTok is just like you have more freedom to fail.
Yeah.
You could fail too on Instagram, but it's a little bit more you get introduced to lesser people, like the algorithm, at least for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you don't do well, the algorithm makes sure that,
That's true.
Right, for me. But I'm not an expert, but
the algorithm's always changing, though. The algorithm is always changing. Yeah, you never know what
it is, honestly.
So it can be a little bit frustrating, and you have to play with it a little bit, but you have to just continue playing with it until it works. But I don't know. For me, Instagram is, I don't know if it's because I'm a millennial, but like Instagram to me is better. TikTok, I'm still a little bit intimidated by, for whatever reason. And I know that people say it's so much easier to use. But for me, it's Instagram, and you just do what comes naturally for you.
Yeah. No, definitely. What I want to kind of walk me through, if there's someone that wants to get into the entertainment space, let's say they're like fresh out of college, they want to get into the entertainment space, out of all this, experience and wisdom and everything, what advice would you give them?
I would say be of value. So offer something to somebody before you can ask them for something. So, don't contact, or you still could, contact an executive, from a production company and say, hey, I want to take you out for coffee and pick your brain. 9 times out of 10, they're probably not going to respond, or they might not say yes to that offer. But if you apply for an internship, maybe once a week for a couple of hours, and offer your services, if you can volunteer, I know it's not easy to volunteer, but if you can volunteer just a little bit and just get your foot into that door and just be there offering what you can do for them, you will get back a lot. Tenfold, it'll come back to you, but you have to be of service initially before asking for anything. So, and just try to put yourselves, in the right spaces and network as much as you can. Mm-hmm. Be out there, put yourself out there. Even if you're an introvert and you don't love to socialize, just do it, Just listen to music in your car and pump yourself up the way I do, and go to those places and go to those events. You never know who you're going to meet. I've met some of my closest friends at these events and at red carpets when we were, doing something totally different, like Louisa. We met on the red carpet and we became friends, and we support each other all the time. So it's a beautiful thing. And that's one of the things that I was really surprised by when I moved to LA, is that it is such a supportive space. And there's, so many people who do what you do and have the same mindset. Sometimes when I go back home and I go back to San Francisco, they're like, oh, how can you live in LA? And it's so this, and they have their misconceptions. And I say, no, not everybody is superficial. Like, you will find your people. Just be yourself, be authentic. You will find your people.
Yeah, do you think is that like the biggest misconception people have about LA with your experience since you've lived somewhere else for a while?
Yeah, they think that LA is just this superficial space of people who are just trying to be something. But the thing is, LA is a combination of people from all over the world who have come here who want to achieve greatness. So if you get all of those people who are really hardworking and are very passionate about what they do and put them all in a room, it's a pretty intimidating space. You've got all of these big thinkers all in one space. So yeah, it's a little bit competitive. It's a little bit intimidating. But if you know exactly who you are, you'll get to where you need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me a little bit about what you do, like your role as a reporter for Huys Media. And Huys, as we were discussing a little bit earlier, Huys means hope in Armenian. And from what I've understood and learned about Huys Media, it's a very like it's aspirational. It's a positive media company, which there's a lot of media companies that don't take that route, but this one is cool because this does take that route. How's your experience working for Huys Media? How has that been? How have you been enjoying it? Because it's one thing, because you do work for yourself, but you're also working for Huys. Like, what's the biggest differentiator between that? How's that experience?
Yeah, it's wonderful to work for them because, like you said, they're positive and they're all about positive content, uplifting the community, and just being that kind of bridge between Armenia and the diaspora, and to encourage and inspire people to do great things, because essentially it's an arts and entertainment outlet. And so I think that's something that maybe we're lacking a little bit, in that space, just because there are so much negative news and there's so much going on that's just heavy. And like, I feel like as a people inherently, we are heavy because of the, intergenerational trauma that we've experienced, that we're naturally just a very deep, heavy, minded people. And we have to take a moment to celebrate all of the greatness that we offer. And I feel like when we do that and when we collaborate with each other, that's what makes all of the difference, to have that collaborative approach and working together, not get in each other's way. And I feel that shift now. I feel that is happening more than ever. And that's a beautiful thing to see.
The shift of what?
The shift of just like us all collaborating, those of us.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed, so in San Francisco, the community is very spread out. But here, there's a lot of Armenians, which is a beautiful thing. But everybody is kind of, when there's so many of us all in one space, we get in each other's way sometimes. And that's kind of how it's been in the past. But I feel that shift of the collaborative efforts and people working together, doing things together, supporting each other, uplifting each other. That's what we need to do more of.
You think it's trended in a better direction?
Totally.
Right, okay.
Totally.
You think this is more of a recent thing, or over the years?
I think it's a more recent thing with everything that we've been through, over these last couple of years. Yeah. There is that shift and that realization that we have to work together because we're all we got, kind of thing. I wasn't always as involved in the Armenian community. I was telling you that I am half. My mom is Ukrainian, my dad is Armenian. And in San Francisco, the community is kind of spread out. I wasn't as involved. But here, initially, it was kind of surprising just how they took to me, and I take that.
How did they take to you?
During COVID.
If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah. So there were protests happening in Studio City at the time of, everything that was going on in the war and everything. I think there was some kind of coverage that it just was not appreciated. There was something that was said that was not correct.
Oh, yeah, a lot of them do that.
I'm trying to be as politically correct as I can. But so there were protests happening 2 blocks from my house. 2 blocks from where I lived.
Yeah.
And the first day that I heard what was going on, I'm like, oh, tell the truth, blah, blah, blah. Like, it just affected me. I'm like, I need to go out there. The next day, the second day of the protests, I'm like, that's it. I'm grabbing my DSLR. I'm grabbing my tripod, the stuff that I usually take with me when I would do red carpets. I'm going to go talk to these protesters. And I did. And I'm like, what's going on? What do you guys want? And it was very common sense. But I made that video for non-Armenians to really explain the situation as simply as I possibly could. So I put that together the next day, and it practically went viral. And one thing led to another, and I got really involved in the community. And I feel like because I come from that outsider's perspective, they took to me. And again, I'm half Armenian. I barely speak Armenian. I'm not from LA, but here I am, being this cheerleader and champion. And I take that very seriously. It's a huge responsibility and one that I take great pride in.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And I think people would appreciate that. Someone, as you said, someone that they took to you, you put that time and that, like you went boots on the ground and reported yourself, which is like, a lot of people won't do that. Like, a lot of people don't even have the capacity to do, not the capacity, they don't feel like doing it.
Yeah.
But I think you actually like what you do, because if you didn't, you wouldn't just take to the streets and report,
To be honest, at the time, I was going through my own personal turmoil And I was hurting inside. And I'm like, okay, I'm hurting. My people are hurting. Maybe if we go hurt together, it'll hurt a little less.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I did it. And yeah, I was scared to go out there. I'm like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. What if they take my camera and throw it across the room? Like, anything can happen. But they didn't. They were very respectful. And all of those protests, by the way, were very respectful.
They were. Yeah.
And like they would clean up after the protest at the end. Like they would have their protest and at the end they would clean the streets.
Yeah,
you know?
That
you remember
made
that?
it in the news, yeah, that they were very, like, it was very peaceful.
That says
when I was
something.
part of some of those protests, it was very, like, respectful, civilized protests. Yeah.
I think respectful protests are important. It's part of a healthy community, you know? You stand up for what you believe in. You got to do what you got to do. I totally get it.
No, definitely, especially us, like, as Americans, we have that right.
Yeah.
It's like this is what we believe in. And there's this one quote, I forgot, by I think Ronald Reagan. I don't remember who said it, but freedom is one generation from being taken away from you. So it's like you have to really exercise your rights, because there's gonna be different places in the world that if you do the same thing, you'll be
totally
bad place. Yeah.
And for somebody like you and me who have these, platforms or whatever, we have to use our voice to do bigger and better things and amplify the voices of others. And for me, that's a passion and a purpose and a mission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of our, there's more and more celebrities that are waking up and kind of amplifying causes. But what I really do like is that they're no longer falling for, the bullshit, the shaming, or, you have to talk about this cause, you have to talk about that cause. It's it's predetermined what you have to talk about. A lot of them are kind of just, they're like, no, this is what I'm talking about, whether you like it or not. And that's a lot more refreshing, because you don't like canned talking points, or you're just supporting something because you know it's gonna fund you.
Right.
But,
and you know what? I think it's important. You don't have to have an opinion on everything.
No, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Impossible.
You don't have to. If anything, your opinion will have less value if you're constantly so extreme in everything that you say.
Right.
You have to pick and choose your causes and the things that you're passionate about.
Right.
So that opinion has weight.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So where do you see everything you're doing with Melkonian Media? Where do you see that kind of going into the future? Is there any future plans you have with Melkonian Media? Do you maybe want to bring on partners or anything? What plans do you have?
So right now it's social media marketing, but the end game in a couple of years is for it to grow into a media outlet and go to events and cover events and kind of be the place where you would get those kinds of entertainment and lifestyle news. That's what I want to do with it. So that's going to take me a little bit of time, but that's the goal for me. That's the goal.
Awesome. How do you juggle being a mom of 3 and working and doing everything you do?
The big question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a constant juggle. They say you have to balance it. There's no such thing as balance. You can't balance it.
That's not a real
But
thing.
it's a constant juggling act. If you want something, you're going to do it. You're going to find a way. And so as a producer, as somebody who's, produced all kinds of different things, it's like a production. It's a full production. You have to plan it accordingly. Okay, so the kids get out at 3:00. I've got these 3 hours. All right, I'm going to set up this meeting at this time. It's
kind of like we planned it. I have to.
Yeah. I gave you,
Yeah.
You've seen what it's
No,
like. I'm like, here are the dates that I can
yeah.
do. All right, we're going to do this. And so thank you for being so flexible with me and making this happen.
Yeah. No. So is it do you see your kids being interested in this line of work? Have you noticed any interest like that in them yet? What their mom does, they want to follow, because a lot of kids want to follow their parents.
What's amazing is that even my 4-year-old, so I have 3, and my 4-year-old is the one who, when she's watching TV, she sees somebody doing an interview or something. She's like, oh, that's what my mommy does. Or if she ever grabs a microphone and she's like, oh, look, mommy, I'm like you. I'm on TV or whatever. And sometimes when I'm getting ready, she's like, are you going to work, mommy? Or she'll play pretend and she says, I'm going to work, because she sees that, mommy is doing XYZ and it inspires her to do certain things. So it's kind of cool. It's very sweet.
Wow. So that's for your youngest, right? Your other 2, are they showing any interest in media work, or are they have their own thing? Or
well, my oldest is a very creative little guy himself, and he wants to be a YouTuber and all of this stuff. And like right now, it kind of makes me a little nervous because this is the generation that are so like consuming content. Like they want to be YouTubers. They want to be streamers. They know all the streamers. Yeah. It's really interesting. And to be honest, they're really smart. This 12-year-old that I have, first of all, he's an encyclopedia. He knows so much information, but he's really genuinely very smart. And, so whatever it is that he wants to do when he's older, I'm going to fully support.
Why does him wanting, like, being a YouTuber, why does that make you a little nervous?
Only because, I want him to have stability first.
Right.
I want him to have a traditional education. Yeah. I want him to have that background so he can have something to fall back on, honestly.
Yeah.
Because, this industry is like nothing is promised. You can have everything today and everything be stripped from you tomorrow. And if that happens, you need to be ready. You need to be ready for that next thing. And so having a degree, having an education is invaluable. So I will push that to him, more than anything else.
No,
but of course,
you.
I will support his dreams, but I will really want him to have, the tools that he needs to be successful, regardless of whatever it is that he does.
So that's your youngest, your oldest. Is your middle, like, any interest in the media at all, or are they doing their own, like, or do they have other plans? Or I know they're very young, but for kids, you could kind of tell what they want to do.
Yeah. So my middle one is the introvert. She's kind of more quiet and shy. A couple weeks ago, she said she wanted to be a teacher. And then a month before that, she said she wanted to be a gymnast. So it's like, it's always changing.
Yeah.
But I know she's a little bit more introverted. And so because she is, I spend a little more time like checking on her, making sure she's happy, she's okay if she needs anything. Because the other two, they're, it's kind of like the squeaky wheel gets the oil. You know what I mean? They're always so loud and outgoing. And so I know that they're going to be okay. But it's the one who's kind of a little bit more reserved into herself. I'm always checking in with her and making sure, she's good and she's fine. It's like you have to find time when you have kids. You have to find time to spend with them individually just so they have enough, of their mom to kind of feel good and confident and happy because, like you said, it's a constant juggle. And so I'm very hands-on with them, just like I'm very hands-on with my work and my projects, but they come first, their well-being, their emotional state, all of that comes first.
So is that how kind of like you prioritize it? Is it like my kids' well-being comes first and then it's work? Is that like the way it's prioritized, or does it ever switch, or how is it?
Like, it depends. I mean, their well-being, of course, is first, but if I have a project that's on this day, and let's say somebody's throwing a tantrum the morning of, I'm not going to call and say, hey, I'm not coming in because my daughter is sad. I will.
Oh, right.
Like, I'm not going to do that.
That's fair. Yeah.
So it's just the overall big picture of it. Yes, the kids are going to come first. Their well-being, their safety, that kind of stuff comes first. But you kind of have to use your own judgment and kind of plan things accordingly. But, my kids are my biggest inspiration. My son, my firstborn, is the one who inspired and encouraged me to get out of my box.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So when he was little, when he was from 18 months to about 3 years old, he was getting early intervention services and support. And so he would have speech therapy, occupational therapy, all kinds of therapies at home. And I would see how hard this little guy had to work in order to do like the normal things and start talking and, things that other kids would just do naturally. I saw how hard he had to work for that. And I sat there, with those therapists day in and day out. And the progress that he made, those little steps, when he started saying mama, I'm like, this kid is like the things that he's able to do, the amount of work that he has to put into these things. If he can do this and I can help guide him, maybe I can pursue my dream of moving to LA one day. Maybe I can do this.
Oh, wow.
Maybe I can do this now.
So was he like the spark?
Yeah.
The spark that ignited everything. Wow, what a blessing.
Awesome.
Yeah. Nice.
It's a beautiful thing, and I credit my son completely.
Shout out to
Shout out to Johnny.
Shout out to Johnny. Yeah, when you're older, you'll see shout out to you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with Gary Vee.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he talks a lot about parenting and kind of like, because there's a lot of parents that approach Gary Vee. They're like, I feel guilty for not spending enough time with my kids, or like, how do I prioritize that? but it seems like you have the right headspace around it. It's kind of
mean-
like you don't. There is no right way to
Yeah.
do it. It's kind of like what fits the mold for that day or for that week, for that month. Like you were saying, if you have a shoot for that day and your daughter's sad, that's not like a good enough reason to stop what you're doing at that shoot. But at the same time, you're gonna prioritize your kids' well-being. So I think it really is a lot about tailoring. And how do you feel about some things that Gary Vee says about?
Well, mom
parenting?
guilt is real. Honestly, you do feel that guilt sometimes, and you never really know, because as much as you want to nurture and be there
Do
for
you
them,
still feel that, like the mom guilt, or?
I feel a little bit less now, because now I know how to manage it. I know when it comes on, I give myself that pep talk. I tell her she's okay, she's safe, everything's going to be okay. But let's say, she is sad right before I have a big shoot. I give her a big hug, and then I leave to my shoot. And then during my shoot, I'm thinking about her. Like, is she okay right now? Like, is she thinking about mom? Should I give her a call? And then I tell myself, she's fine.
Right.
She's fine. And of course, like, I'll come home and she's happy again and stuff, and everything's okay. But that happens, and Gary's absolutely right.
Like the mom guilt and all that. What was
It's
it
real.
that? Right. No, it is a real thing, right? So what is it that though it went, because it's less now? How did you lessen it over time? Is there something you did just in case there's some moms watching this that want to lessen?
Well, it's really through experience.
Right.
Like, I would have those thoughts, and then I would come home and I'd see that she's okay. And so after a while, I start to tell myself, okay, just remember that time that you came home and she was totally fine. That's what's going to happen this time. And it's that experience.
Oh, the
that gives,
repetition. Right,
and
right.
it gives you that confidence, Same as, like, if you don't feel, like, if you get nervous, like, sometimes I still get nervous, like if I'm doing, a big shoot, or if I'm on stage in
Which
front
is
of
hard
1,000
to believe
people.
because you seem like you're
I
never
know
nervous.
it happens,
Right,
but so it's all about what you do with those nerves, So when I'm nervous, I'm extra excited and I get extra energy. So I have to calm myself, and I have to give myself that pep talk. I go, okay, breathe. You're okay. Everything's great. Everything's going to be wonderful. And so you learn over time the things that you need to do for yourself, because everybody's different. So with me, I learned that I get extra excited, and it's through repetition that you kind of see what you need to do differently. And watch yourself on camera. So if you're on camera a lot, watch yourself on camera. What is it that I could be doing differently next time? And keep practicing and keep practicing.
If there's anything you could tell your younger self, if you could go back to like 20-year-old you, was there anything you'd tell them?
I would say that.
Like, let's say she was like standing right there, right here. Is
Oh
there
my
anything
God.
you tell 20-year-old Nona?
20-year-old Nona. Yeah. I would give her a hug and I say, keep doing what you're doing. You're on the right track. Keep at it. Chip away, one step at a time. Baby steps. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And it's okay. You're going to be okay.
Perfect.
I'm like, I can keep going and going. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Fantastic. Okay, awesome. I just want to close things off with one last question. Where do you see yourself in your career in the next like couple of years from now?
I have been doing things one day at a time, to be honest. And if you were to ask me this question of where I see myself in 5 years, I would have a definite answer for you. But life has taught me to be open to the road less traveled and to take alternative routes. And so I don't know. And that's okay.
Yeah.
There's an excitement in that. I know the things that I'd like to pursue within that time. I know there's a lot of traveling involved. But to give you a definite answer of exactly what I'm going to be doing, it's open-ended. And that excites me.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so where can people find you if they wanted to get in contact with you? Where can people find you? Go ahead and let them know.
Yeah. Follow me on Instagram. I'm at Nona Melkoni on Instagram. Or on YouTube, it's In the Know with Nona and Melkoni Media.
Perfect. Fantastic stuff. Thank you. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Go ahead, like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what your favorite part of this episode was. I'm going to see you guys on the next one. Thank you, Nona. Thank you so much. Yeah. All right, guys. Peace.